Hello everyone, so I thought I'd do a World Cup preview for Australia. So team wise, I'm going to start off with that. The one elephant in the room is Josh Inglis. Why do we need two wicket keepers? Is Alex Carey expected to be injured? I mean, is there a question between him and someone else? Because for me, Alex Carey's a better batsman, better keeper, better everything than Josh Inglis. Better, faster batsman, hits it harder, gets a better average. There's no area where Josh Inglis is ahead. I mean, this is in comparison to, for example, the Indian situation with their wicket keepers. So, with Rishabh Pant out, assuming he's still out, they had a choice, a difficult one, of Ishan Kishan, who's a better batsman but a worse keeper, or KS Bharat, who is a better keeper but a worse batsman. So that's a decision to make, and that's something that is a 50-50 decision. But I don't see that as being a difficult decision between Alex Carey and Josh Inglis. So Josh Inglis for me doesn't belong in the side. He's surplus to requirements, as they might say. Now, additionally, Ashton Agar was in there in a bit of a strange position, playing as a second spin bowler behind Adam Zampa, and also as someone who bats a bit. So presumably in times when you might want to have someone who spins the ball but bats a bit but doesn't really spin the ball that much. And yeah, don't know what Ashton Agar was doing in the side. I mean, there are other players that do have that sort of position about them, such as Matthew Short's one, and that other Green, Chris Green I think it was, because Cameron Green bowls pace but Chris Green I believe bowls spin, and there are a few of them. I mean, there's quite a few batsmen that bowl a bit of spin. There's Marnus Labuschagne and of course Steve Smith, and so there's a few of them going around. Not to mention Travis Head and Glenn Maxwell. So we've already got players that fulfill that role, and if you're going to have someone that bats a bit and spins a bit, you know, Glenn Maxwell's still bowling quite a lot, and his bowling's quite good in Indian conditions. It actually improves in Indian conditions. I don't know, there's something about the conditions that just help his bowling, and his batting's quite good in India as well. It's quite good everywhere, but it doesn't get worse. And yeah, so if you do that, you've got Glenn Maxwell, and you've also got Travis Head. Of course, he's suffering from an injury at the moment, but he should come back in later in the tournament. So what was Ashton Agar doing in the squad? Anyway, we've got Marnus Labuschagne there, who's a much better batsman. I'm not sure how much better his bowling is. I suppose Ashton Agar bowls more often, so he could probably bowl longer spells. I mean, Labuschagne at the moment will be lucky to get through 1 or 2 overs without going everywhere. And in fact, even those 1 or 2 overs, he probably wouldn't do much with it at the moment because he's just out of practice. When he was in practice, he could bowl 5 or 6 overs. But he couldn't bowl 10, and I'd say Ashton Agar can bowl 10. Glenn Maxwell, can he bowl 10? Possibly. He'll certainly be up to 7 or 8 most matches, and look, he can take wickets. Travis Head, can he bowl 10? No, probably not. But he's probably good for 4 or 5, and he might take a wicket. And that's the thing. I mean, I wouldn't trust Steve Smith to bowl at the moment, or Labuschagne. Those two are not bowling for me. Travis Head might a bit, but not much. So we should probably be dropping Josh Inglis. That's the elephant in the room, because we'd like to get another bowler in there and another spin bowler, and that would probably be Tanveer Sangha, who did quite well in South Africa. Now granted, that's completely different conditions, but he's Indian born, and Indian born players tend to do well in India. It's sort of as it happens. It's like Usman Khawaja when he went to Pakistan and did well, and you know, this is just what happens. You know, you've got some familiarity with the conditions. It's, you know, probably why we don't really like to have players that are born overseas, or at least not very many of them, certainly in an international team. So it probably should be a limit. But I don't know. I don't know if that limit should be 2. I feel 2 is probably the maximum you really want. But anyway, so I would have had Tanveer Sangha as our second spinner at the moment. There are other options. I can't remember the names of the others, but I mean Todd Murphy did pretty well in India in the Test series. I know he hasn't played white ball cricket for Australia yet, but you know he could, I'm sure. Nathan Lyon could, I'm sure. But we're just deciding to stick with Adam Zampa, who does have a good white ball record. Anyway, so the issue there is that we are lacking a bit in spin bowling. We've got powerhouse fast bowler. I don't know what Sean Abbott's doing in the side. That's another one. Is there ever going to be a time when we're going to play 4 fast bowlers in India? I mean, I suppose we could. Maybe there's a pitch that requires it, and if so, you've got Sean Abbott, who kind of bats a bit as well. I mean, Mitchell Starc can bat, and so can Pat Cummins, but they don't normally play really as all-rounders. Then you've got Cameron Green, who's in the squad. I don't mind him being in the squad, but I think he should be there for his batting, really. And Mitchell Marsh, from my memory of him, he started off mainly as a bowler, and then he started to bat a bit. So, and now he's opening the batting, or batting at 3. It's a bit of a strange one. He's not bowling at the moment. So, I think that really the other big problem is that Australia's really only got David Warner as the main opener, and we don't know who the second opener is. We don't have a second opener. Usman Khawaja is not in the squad, and there's just nobody. I mean, we can sort of toss a coin as to who ends up opening. So this Australian side is very all over the place. We don't know who the best side is. We played a series in India, a three ODI series where we had one squad that was completely different to this squad, not 100% different, but mostly different. And then we had another squad that went to South Africa, played 3 T20s and 3 ODIs, and that was different players again. And then the squad in the World Cup seems to be a combination. And that'd be okay if we hadn't finalised our World Cup squad already, but we had. And so we had players playing in those 2 series, first in South Africa, then in India, who knew that they weren't going to play World Cups, but they were playing in the squad in the series anyway, just with very little to get out of it. I mean, I would have preferred to have seen us have our whole squad playing. And if we're going to treat them as World Cup warm-ups, play our World Cup squad. I mean, maybe you have a couple of players who you rest and you rotate through the squad, but you know, we should have been trying out the squad, and a lot of players didn't even play, people that are in the squad. So I found that to be very strange and very bad warm-up, really. So bad selecting with Josh Inglis and also Ashton Agar, and missing Labuschagne, and missing the second spinner, who I'm going to say should probably be Tanveer Sangha. So 2 that we should have kicked out and 2 that we should have brought in. But even with that, we do still have that balance issue. I'm not sure that Sean Abbott realistically should get a game, unless we're going for big hitters. I mean, and the other big problem is what's Pat Cummins doing as captain. I know he's the Test captain, but in the one-day games, he's the 3rd best pace bowler, right? Because Mitchell Starc is probably our best pace bowler most of the time, but then he's a bit erratic. He goes a bit really good and then really bad. And Josh Hazlewood is our consistent bowler. So usually the 2nd best, but when Starc is having an off day, he's the best. Pat Cummins is the 3rd. So that's okay if you're going to play 3 pace bowlers, but then what if you want to play 2 pace bowlers and play 2 spinners? Well, we don't have that second spinner anyway, but if we did, Pat Cummins is not in the 11. So you're going to have to play a player who is either only barely in the 11 or not quite in there. And you have to play him because he's the captain. So the captain should always be someone that's easily in the side. And so therefore it shouldn't be him. So who should it be? Well, based on current form, I mean, Mitchell Marsh, he'd been captain. I think he's a decent shot. I thought he was going to be the captain. So, I don't know, maybe if they'll rest Pat Cummins and put Mitchell Marsh in, I don't know. Because I don't know that I trust Mitchell Marsh as a captain, he's a bit erratic. So, as for how that makes Australia look in this World Cup, well, I think that Australia should beat some of the lower level sides. So I've said in my overall preview and rankings, I think we should beat Netherlands pretty easily, though we have to be careful. Bangladesh and Afghanistan relatively easily. Now, I think those two teams could beat Australia, but they'd have to be very good. Probably Australia's fairly used to Bangladesh, so they should be fairly easy to beat, so we know what they're like. They did beat us once, but that was when Andrew Symonds turned up drunk the morning of the match. Bangladesh counted, but I don't really. And then Afghanistan is a bit more of a banana peel because we just don't know what they're like. We're not used to them. South Africa have recently beaten us, and I think that will be a bit of a danger game. But I think we can beat them. And then we've got Sri Lanka. I think Australia should be able to beat them, but it will not be an easy match. New Zealand will also be a bit tough for us. England, I think, are probably a bit too hard for us to beat. But if everything goes right, we could. Pakistan will be really hard to beat, and I think it'll be just impossible for us to beat Pakistan. And as for India, I know we beat them in the third one-day international. Again, that was treated as a warm-up match. I think it'll be tough, and we're playing India first. It's our first match. I think it'll be hard for us to win. It's possible. Of course, we just beat them. We'll need to win that if we're to progress to the semi-finals. If we lose that, look, there's still a chance, obviously, but you know that's going to be in many ways the test as to whether we're above the line or below the line as far as semi-finals are concerned. Because we're going to have a lot of other tough opponents. I mean, even South Africa, who I've got listed as 7th, they just beat us in an ODI series. Granted, in South Africa, but this is not at our home either. This is in India, which will probably favour South Africa because they tend to play better away. So I know we weren't playing our best side there, but the fact that they beat us will be tough. And so I really think that we really only have Netherlands as one easy match. Probably Bangladesh as the second one. There's going to be 9 tough matches that are going to be, we're going to have to play really, really well to get what we need is probably 6 wins. I mean, if you think it's 9, 8, 7, 6 for the top 4, you probably need 6 wins and 3 losses. I think any more than 3 losses, you're probably not in the top 4. Now, you might get there with 4 losses, but you need to have other results go your way. And you need to have a high net run rate. So, yeah, it's going to be tough to avoid that 4th loss. I mean, you think of teams that we might lose to. Recently, you know, we've lost to India, South Africa. Pakistan's a very good side. England are the reigning champions. New Zealand just finished runner-up in the last one. There's 4 losses there. And, you know, you've got South Africa, just beat us. You've got Sri Lanka. I mean, we could potentially have 6 losses. So, I think we'll still win at least a few matches. But it is 50-50 whether we'll make the semi-finals. That'll be a big challenge. Will we go further? I don't think we should make the final. But, I mean, you never know. Maybe one team is panicking. And maybe we can take advantage. Maybe it's that sort of situation we had in that T20 World Cup we won recently, where it was just win the toss, win the match. And maybe it'll become that sort of situation, and maybe we'll win tosses like we did then. But look, it's going to be very tough. David Warner, I know he's doing pretty well in the one-day game, but there is a lot of pressure on him as well. He's the only opener there. Certainly in the Test match arena, his form is terrible, and he is getting a bit old. His retirement is coming up soon, probably. So there is every chance of very low scores for Australia in a number of matches. So a lot for other teams to take advantage of. Yeah, it's looking tough, but we do have, I think we've got two very good fast bowlers in Stark and Hazelwood. Cummins as the third option will be great. We'll have Zampa as our reliable spinner, and he does tend to do pretty well in short formats. It remains to be seen if he does well in India. Yeah, then we got a fifth bowler. We'll just make up those overs most likely, but it could end up being Glenn Maxwell bowling as the fifth bowler at some of the time. He might even open the bowling, as he sometimes does, and he might open the batting, because he's done that before and done quite well with it. Maybe we'll have Warner and Maxwell open the batting. Anyway, it's possible. Look, we could even win the whole thing, it's possible. But I think it's probably more likely 50-50 whether we just make it or just miss the semi-finals. Anyway, that's it from me. Bye-bye now.